last question. Have you taken a look at our budget to see what we are actually capable of utilizing and whether we have funds that are available to do that?
I've been doing this, we've been doing this regardless of that,
Okay.
again, and which is our typical thing, which is kind of what I was trying to say, probably not as clearly, that if you said, we'd like to do, and this does happen, we'd like to do something a little bit more than the bring them in, maybe we could afford to do something than the bring them in. Maybe we can afford to bring the minimum implementation and a little bit more. What can you afford? It's this. So what would be the best recommendations, Evergreen, to do that? And we do that.
Well, that's budget time.
Yeah.
That's when we figure that out.
Yeah, but we can't, I mean, that's what I was trying to
All right,
allude to.
out of 13 peers, quote unquote peers, that were respondents, 12, I assume, were the public sector salary range data on page 9, correct? So private sector is just Dabney.
Is what?
It's just Dabney. You've got Dabney at the bottom. Is that the only one that you used for the private sector?
Yes, and then the private sector data that I show on page 12, we didn't, it's there, but we didn't factor it in mathematically anywhere. We reached out to them, but, well, let me say it this way. West Rock is probably in the private sector, it's probably in this private sector data on page 10. You with me? Because we don't know who those, we don't know the private sector respondents to Economic Research Institute. We pay for that data. They're never going to tell people that. They keep that all whatever. So we probably have West Rock in for those positions in that private sector data. We don't know that, absolutely, but that's a fairly good assumption. Do you have a concern?
No, I just don't like the idea that 8 of those respondents, kind of piggybacking what Mr. Tucker was saying, that, you know, comparing us to Roanoke City and Harrisonburg and some of those localities just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I understand what you're trying to say, but when you're comparing us to Roanoke City, that's apples and oranges. It makes absolutely no sense to be able to compare our salary range, and I'm not against revisiting the salary structure at all. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to compare us to Stanton, Roanoke City, Harrisonburg, Roanoke County, those type of localities. It just, maybe you can teach me better than what I'm getting from you, but I'm just not too impressed with that type of correlation, I guess you'd say.
From a employee perspective, your peers are always those people to which your employees can reasonably go work, whether you like it or not, quite frankly, in a proximity period.
I understand.
And that's the only reason. Now again, understand completely if you say, well, we can't compete with those. Okay, can we take some of those peers out and look at the data again? Certainly. We can do that. We can just strip them out and whatever. We may get some of the benchmarks below the amount of responses that we need to do that.
You did the math on that.
The first proposal, $119,000, take 5-cent tax increase. The second one would take a 9-cent tax increase. And the third one would take a 14-cent tax increase.
So Mayor, you do have to factor in though, some of those are utility funded.
Yeah.
I don't know what the breakdown is.
Yeah, I understand. But just across the board. And I think it's a good presentation. I think that it's a good starting point, and we need to think about it as a starting point in my mind. I think our salary structure does need to be adjusted. I have no doubt that that's true. We had asked for a utilization study prior to this study to see how efficient we were operating in each department, and we haven't seen that yet. So do I know that we're operating at maximum efficiency before we start giving raises, or are we giving raises and not operating at maximum efficiency?
Bingo.
And that, you know, we asked, Mr. Zimmerman asked for that years ago. He asked occasionally, but we've never had that. And I'm not sure we can use this study until we know that we're operating at as efficiently as we can with the employees we have.
With the fact that they have asked for an evaluation process.
That's
Would help
a
with that.
problem. There should have been an evaluation
Yes,
process.
we should. I
And
mean, everybody should be evaluated.
I think we have an evaluation process that's not being used. Is that right?
Correct.
So I think that would make the difference.
Yes. I know that we evaluate the city manager regularly, but I'm not sure that many of the other employees get evaluated on a regular basis. And that's not any reflection on, you know, that was the way it was before you ever got here.
Well, I think most
But
of them,
that's,
long before we got here, administration,
yeah.
and then don't evaluate the,
No, we do city manager and,
Well, there haven't been merit raises budgeted either prior to me or during my
right,
tenure.
right.
yeah.
So really, one of the purposes of doing the evaluation is to have a pool of merit dollars that can be used. So I do like the idea of the sliding scale, so
Sure.
everything's not in this 2.5%.
I think we need to get away from the steps myself, because we never funded steps. We give cost of living raises, and then you give somebody a decent cost of living raise, the next thing you hear from them, well, they get my step. Don't take into account that they got a nice cost of living raise, or they got a longevity
which
raise.
is
I didn't get my
based
step.
on- which is
So
based on-
I'm all in favor of getting rid of steps for everybody and going to this type of scale. You know, we do the best we can for the employees with the money we have to work with. The 5 of us are accountable to the citizens. And if we have to start talking about 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 % tax increases, I've got to go out that door and explain to somebody why we increased their taxes by 9 cents to give people raises, which they may well deserve. I'd like to see a utilization study. How, you know, we
Well-
operating the most efficient as we can.
Well, I think our employees over the past year at least have done an outstanding
They
job.
are.
And they probably
They
do
are.
deserve a raise, but it's, you know, if you ain't got it, you can't spend it. And that's the only problem that we have at that point in time. I think all of us sitting up here think that our employees deserve an increase. I mean, but, you know, we've got to look at it from the standpoint that we do not want to have to go in debt in order to supply that, because we can't go in debt. Otherwise, we end up like Petersburg, Buena Vista, and some of the other cities that are at the top of the fiscally stressed area.
There's a lot to look at.
It's a lot, it is. And your information is good.
Yeah.
We're not
Good start.
criticizing you, okay?
No, that's okay. May I say something? Just the thoughts going, you know, thinking about this is, you know, because I like to solve things. I'm an HR practitioner more than I am a consultant, but I was an HR practitioner for 30-something years. Is if you're, you know, if you look and start thinking, well, maybe I'd like to look at it as, take out a few of these, you know, as the peers. We could do some fairly easy, you know, without too much, you know, extra going back and reworking, probably looking at that and going, okay, so maybe we get the structure, again, we were conservative. I wouldn't say we were by any means like, whoa, but, you know, slide that a little bit back, take that back a little bit based on, let's take a few of the peers out, see what difference that would make, so maybe we can adjust the whole pay plan back, I would call it back a little bit if you are with me, a little bit, so it's not quite as, you know, competitive. I would never say it's lagging the market, but, you know, just, you can't quite get there fiscally, but you want to do something to move ahead. You know, we can look at some options like that if you'd like to.
I think, you know, you
That
said
makes
you had
sense.
run into one location that benefit package made a difference. You may be at the second one.
Okay. Okay.
You know, we have a fantastic insurance plan. BB, what's VRS cost to us? Is it 10%?
It can range depending on what the system requires. And as a generic term, anywhere depending on given INM and the state budget numbers, anywhere, what I've experienced, 13 to 15% so far.
So we're on top of your salary, we pay another 13% to the retirement system for you?
That's correct.
And then we give a longevity raise,
Yes.
and those things are very important in the total compensation of the employee.
And what's the percentage we pay on medical insurance?
That was my question.
Medical insurance, for a single plan, we pay roughly, to keep everything even, $7,000 for a single plan, 13 to 14 for a dual plan, and 19 to 20 for a family.
Well, what percentage does that come out to?
Well, it can range anywhere
Depending on
from
what plan.
a single plan of $3.50 per hour, additional if it was compensation-based, to $6 an hour to the upward range of a family plan, it would amount to $9 and change per hour.
Because I was, and what he said too, it depends on
Because
the
you can't get a
plan.
true percentage,
Right.
because
It depends
each
on,
employee is different.
right, because it depends on which plan they've
Right,
chosen.
so I give you the amount of money that is technically applied, and if you will take our contribution and divide that by 2080, then if you put a per hour cost on it, that's where I come up with
Oh, okay.
350, the 650, and the 950 an hour.
Right,
That's how I come up with that.
I retired out of a government job, and I was paying $210 a month for health insurance for me and my wife. When I retired, my health insurance went to $13.85 a month. The city employees are in the same boat. They're paying a low premium now, but if they went out and tried to buy that same health insurance, it would be 5, 6, 7 times more than what they're paying now. So when you start looking at the total compensation, I wouldn't be afraid to say we can add 70% or in that area to their salary in compensation other than an hourly rate.
May I ask, but do you not compare similarly to other public sector? That's my point.
Yes.
We do.
So you're really the same as
Those on
other
local
public
choice
sector.
have to contribute
Right.
certain
Yes.
percentages in VRS.
Roanoke doesn't
We're all the
have,
same.
Roanoke doesn't pay into VRS.
No, they do their own plan.
So I don't know what difference that makes, but I know that when we start looking at government jobs, and Mr. Tucker said that government jobs are normally lower paying, but government jobs are usually higher paying benefits. And I stayed with the state of Virginia for 38 years because couldn't nobody beat the benefits.
Yes, and that is still the case. However, I'd say we're seeing a little bit of a trend, and if you go out and read anything online, a little bit of a trend of some of the public sector because of that economy dip and competing with the private sector and all the things changing a bit. So
Yeah.
the salaries are creeping up a little bit more in the public sector to compete. And you mentioned longevity. I'm just going to say this, maybe not so much in this area, and it just depends. But we're beginning to see more and more of when you're recruiting other generations of employees into this work, are they going to stay for the long term? That's maybe not, is the whole question, and what would attract them more. And all people will tell you, including those people, that generally it's the money.
Well, with millennials, we're told that it's a little bit different than ours. They choose the place that they want to live and worry about getting a job later.
Right. And they're not concerned about health insurance.
Right, they're not
Yes.
concerned about health
And
insurance.
they're not as concerned about retirement.
Yes. So, we have conversations with some of our clients about, so how do you try to, help that? And it probably is more in trying to do what you can, if you can, to get the structure more competitive. Maybe it's not absolutely hit the mark, okay? And then what can you do to help move some of those salaries?
Yeah. And I think the
I mean,
beginning,
it's simplifying, I know, but
the beginning of that is looking at the pay structure.
yes,
I'm sure that's where we need to start.
yeah.
I'm good.
We
Thank
didn't
you
mean
so
to beat
much.
you up, we just got
That's
a
okay.
lot of things.
Trust me, this is not.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You did a good job, thank you.